The Zorani capital burned under a sky choked with smoke. Massive Tyrax warships loomed in orbit, their bombardments carving deep scars into the planet's surface. Fires raged in the streets, turning the air thick with acrid fumes. The insected Zorani, once a proud and thriving species, scattered like leaves in a storm, their desperate cries swallowed by the chaos. From within the crumbling halls of the Zorani High Council, Supreme Speaker Vezek hunched over a flickering hollow terminal. His translucent wings, once a symbol of dignity, quivered with despair. The Galactic Union's reply played on a loop. The Council of Sovereign Species regrets to inform you that intervention is not feasible. The Zorani are advised to surrender and accept annexation into the Tyrax dominion. This matter is closed. Vezek's mandibles clicked in frustration. Surrender meant extinction. The Tyrax did not take prisoners, they absorbed, enslaved, or exterminated. He turned to his advisors, their luminous eyes dull with resignation. We cannot simply accept death, Vezek rasped. There must be someone who will stand with us. An old minister chittered bitterly. Who, Supreme Speaker? The Council will do nothing. No species will risk war against the Tyrax for our sake. A young aide hesitated before speaking. Perhaps the humans? The room fell silent. Humans. The unpredictable, war-born newcomers to the galactic stage. Their influence was minimal, their worlds few, but they had something the other species lacked, a refusal to kneel. Vezek slammed his hand on the console and transmitted a distress signal to the Terran Defense Network. He doubted anyone would answer. Aboard the TDS Valkyrie, Captain Elias Grayson leaned against the cold metal railing of his bridge, arms crossed. The distress signal from Zorani Prime flickered on the main screen, looping in its desperate urgency. Around him, his officers watched in silence, awaiting his decision. Commander Juliet Voss exhaled sharply. Same as always. The Union does nothing while a species gets wiped out. It's a damn massacre. Lieutenant Hale shook his head. We're not diplomats. If we interfere, the Union will sanction every Terran colony. Maybe worse. Grayson didn't respond immediately. His gaze stayed locked on the screen, watching the images of broken cities and terrified civilians. He had seen this before, helpless people, abandoned by politics, swallowed by war. A choice lay before him. Follow the rules, stay out of it, and let history repeat itself. Or break every regulation in the book and fight for those who had no one else. He turned to his crew. If we go in alone. No Union backing. No reinforcements. He met their eyes one by one. I won't order you to do this. But I won't stand by while innocent people are slaughtered. Voss smirked. We're Terrans. We don't do stand by. The bridge erupted in a chorus of agreement. Grayson nodded once. Then let's remind the galaxy what that means. Helm, set course for Zorani Prime. We're going to war. Zorani Prime, 12 hours later. Vezek stood atop the ruined council chamber, watching the Tyrax drop pods descend like falling meteors. His people had no military, no weapons capable of stopping the onslaught. The city's defenses had crumbled within hours. Now, all that remained was waiting for the end. Then, against all odds, something changed. The clouds above split apart, not from another Tyrax bombardment, but from something new, streaks of fire hurtling toward the battlefield. But these weren't weapons. They were ships. Sleek, angular war machines cut through the smog-filled sky, engines howling. Their dark hulls gleamed with the unmistakable insignia of Terran warcraft. Vezek's heart pounded. The humans had come. The first human dropship slammed into the streets below. The bay doors hissed open, and armored figures spilled out, weapons raised. Grayson stepped forward, rifle in hand, scanning the destruction before his gaze landed on Vezek. Supreme Speaker? He called. Vezek hesitated before rushing toward him. You came, he breathed in disbelief. Grayson nodded, eyes sharp with determination. We got your call. Before another word could be spoken, the ground trembled. A squad of Tyrax warriors rounded a corner, their bioplasma rifles raised. The hulking reptilian creatures roared as they opened fire. Grayson barely moved before his team reacted. Suppression fire roared from Terran rifles, cutting through the smoky air. A Tyrax soldier lunged forward, claws swiping for Grayson, but he ducked, driving his knife into the alien's throat with brutal precision. More Terran troops landed, securing the area. Explosions thundered in the distance, marking the beginning of the true battle. Voss rushed up to Grayson. "We've secured the South District. Civilians are being evacuated, but Tyrax forces are closing in fast." Grayson turned to Vezek. "Get your people underground. We'll hold them off." Vezek's mandibles clicked. "You can't fight them alone. They will overwhelm you." Grayson gave a grim smile. "Let them try." As he spoke, the sky lit up again, this time with the arrival of the main Tyrax fleet. The battle had only just begun. 2 of 2. The streets of Zorani Prime had turned into a war zone. Smoke curled through shattered buildings as the thunder of explosions rolled across the city. Human soldiers moved with precision, taking cover behind wreckage, their rifles barking as they fired at the advancing Tyrax forces. Captain Elias Grayson crouched behind a collapsed transport vehicle, wiping sweat from his brow as his comm crackled to life. "Captain, North Sector is barely holding," came Commander Voss's voice. "They're throwing everything at us. We need reinforcements." Grayson peered over cover. A Tyrax assault team was pushing forward, their massive reptilian bodies shrugging off small arms fire. A plasma round slammed into the debris beside him, sending molten rock spraying across his armor. "Voss, hold the line. I'm sending Bravo team to reinforce you." He switched channels. "Bravo, get your squad to North Sector. Double time it." "On it, Captain," came the reply. He glanced at Supreme Speaker Vezek, who stood nearby with a small group of Zorani civilians. The insected leader's wings twitched with unease. "I don't understand," Vezek said. "Why are you doing this? No other species would risk their own for us." Grayson checked his rifle's charge and met Vezek's eyes. "Because we can." He motioned toward the civilians. "Get them underground. We'll buy you time." Vezek hesitated before nodding, then hurried off. A distant roar snapped Grayson's attention forward. The Tyrax were moving in heavy walkers, four-legged war machines bristling with cannons. Their metal feet crushed wreckage as they advanced, plasma turrets swiveling toward human positions. Grayson cursed. "Command, this is Grayson. We need anti-armor support now." "Acknowledged, Captain," came the reply. "Gunships inbound. ETA 60 seconds. "We don't have 60 seconds, Grayson muttered. The first walker opened fire, sending a pulse of searing energy into a nearby building. The explosion tore through the structure, sending debris raining down. A squad of human soldiers barely managed to dive away in time. Grayson switched to squad comms. "Target the legs! Bring them down!" His troops responded instantly, launching grenades and concentrated fire at the joints of the towering machines. One walker staggered as its front leg buckled, sending it crashing into the rubble. Another took a direct rocket hit, its hull erupting in a fireball. But the Tyrax kept coming. Grayson spotted a second wave approaching, their reptilian warriors advancing under heavy suppressive fire. He turned to his comms again. "Where the hell are those gunships?" "Inbound now, Captain." A high-pitched whine split the air. From above, 2 Terran gunships roared into view, missile bays opening. A storm of projectiles streaked downward, slamming into the enemy's position. The remaining walkers erupted in explosions, their mechanical limbs twisted and burning. The ground forces didn't stand a chance. The moment the walkers fell, human infantry surged forward, cutting down the Tyrax soldiers with disciplined precision. Plasma and kinetic rounds filled the battlefield. Grayson activated his comm. "All units push forward! Drive them back!" His troops advanced, clearing street by street. The Tyrax, stunned by the sudden counterattack, retreated toward the city outskirts. But Grayson knew it wasn't over. This wasn't a retreat. It was a regrouping. Zorani High Council bunker. Vezek paced inside the underground chamber, watching as more civilians were ushered in. His people looked at him with pleading eyes, as if he had the answers. But he had none. A human officer entered, lowering his rifle. "Speaker, we've secured this sector. Your people are safe for now." Vezek turned. "For now? What does that mean?" The officer hesitated before answering. "The Tyraks aren't finished. They're pulling back, but that just means they're preparing for something bigger. If we stay, they'll hit us with everything they have." Vezek's wings flicked. "And what will you do?" The officer smiled grimly. "Same thing we always do. Fight." Battlefront, outskirts of the capital. Grayson stood on a rooftop, scanning the horizon through his scope. The Tyraks' forces had withdrawn beyond the ruins, but he could see their warships moving in low orbit. Their next assault would be brutal. Vasa's voice crackled in. "Captain, you seeing this?" "Yeah," Grayson replied. "They're bringing in something big." A deep rumble echoed across the city. From the clouds, a Tyrax dreadnought descended, its hull bristling with weapons. It hovered above the battlefield like a predator surveying its prey. Grayson tightened his grip on his rifle. "This isn't just a battle anymore. They're going to level the whole city." Vas exhaled sharply. "Then what's the plan?" Grayson's jaw clenched. "We take the fight to them." He switched channels. "All units, prepare for an all-out assault. We either hold this ground, or we die on it." The sky darkened as the dreadnought's cannons powered up. The real battle was just beginning. The Tyrax dreadnought loomed overhead, its shadow stretching across the ruined city like a storm cloud. Its cannons hummed with power, a low, pulsing growl that signaled the destruction to come. Captain Elias Grayson stood atop the wreckage of a collapsed building, watching the warship's descent with a clenched jaw. The next attack wouldn't just target the human defenders, it would wipe Zorani Prime off the map. His comm crackled. "Captain, we've intercepted transmissions from the Tyrax flagship," said Lieutenant Hale. "They're preparing an orbital strike. Estimated impact in 20 minutes. Grayson's fingers tightened around his rifle. "Then we hit them first." "Sir?" Hale asked. "We take the fight to their command ship," Grayson said. "If we don't, this city is gone." Commander Vasa's voice came over the line. "That's suicide. They'll have shields, defenses, hell, we don't even know where their command center is on that thing." Grayson turned his gaze skyward. "Then we figure it out on the way." A pause. Then, "I assume you already have a plan?" Grayson allowed himself a grim smile. "Of course. We board it. Zorani High Council bunker." Vezek listened in disbelief as Grayson laid out the plan. The human forces would launch a direct assault on the Tyrax dreadnought, boarding it with strike teams before it could fire. It was madness. "That warship is the size of a city," Vezek argued. "Even if you get inside, what then?" Grayson adjusted his rifle's sling. "We take out their command structure. No orders, no attack." Vezek's mandibles clicked. "And if you fail?" Grayson met his gaze without hesitation. "We don't." Vezek saw something in the human's eyes he hadn't seen in the Galactic Union's ambassadors: conviction. There was no hesitation, no calculation of political risks. Just the absolute certainty that they would fight, regardless of the odds. "Very well," Vezek said. "If this is the only way, then go. And may your courage carry you to victory." Launch Bay, TDS Valkyrie. Grayson stepped onto the dropship, the deck rumbling beneath his boots as the engines roared to life. Around him, strike teams made final checks on their gear. Their faces were set with grim determination. Vaz strapped in beside him. "You ever boarded a warship mid-battle?" Grayson smirked. "First time for everything." The pilot's voice came over comms. "Approaching target. Enemy A is hot, expect turbulence." The ship lurched as flak fire erupted from the dreadnought. Explosions lit up the sky, but the human pilots weaved through the storm, pushing straight toward the enemy vessel. "Brace for impact," the pilot yelled. A sudden jolt rocked the dropship as it slammed into the dreadnought's hull. Magnetic clamps locked in, sealing the boarding tunnel to the warship's exterior. Go! 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 Grayson shouted. The hatch blew open, and his team surged forward, weapons raised. Inside, Tyrax soldiers turned in shock as human troops poured into the corridor. The first enemy barely had time to react before Grayson's rifle barked, dropping him instantly. Plasma fire lit up the hallway, streaks of red and blue flashing as both sides clashed. The air filled with the roar of battle. Push forward! Grayson ordered. Voss took point, leading a squad through a side corridor. Gunfire and shouts echoed as they cleared room after room, advancing deeper into the ship. The Tyrax had superior numbers, but humans had speed and precision. Hail status? Grayson called. We've breached engineering. Hale responded. Sabotaging their weapons systems now. A distant explosion confirmed it. One of the dreadnought's cannons had just gone offline. But the fight wasn't over. Tyrax command bridge. High Warlord Zelvek watched the chaos unfold on his screens, his reptilian features twisting with rage. How did they board my ship? He bellowed. A technician trembled. They bypassed our defenses, Supreme Commander. They are moving toward the control sector. Zelvek's claws raked the metal armrest of his throne. Seal the corridors. Flood them with gas. I want them dead. Dreadnought main corridor. Grayson's squad pressed forward, cutting down resistance as they neared the command center. Suddenly, vents hissed, releasing a thick, green vapor. Gas! Voss shouted. Grayson pulled his rebreather over his face, but some soldiers weren't fast enough. They staggered, choking as the toxin filled the air. Move! Now! Grayson barked, shoving forward. They hit the final bulkhead. Behind it, the command bridge. Explosives were slapped onto the door. Blow it! A deafening blast sent metal shrapnel flying. Before the smoke cleared, Grayson and his team charged through. Inside, Zelvek stood, flanked by his guards. The warlord's golden armor gleamed under the bridge's cold lights. You dare board my vessel? Zelvek snarled. You are insects. Grayson leveled his rifle. Funny. We were thinking the same about you. Gunfire erupted. The bridge became a war zone, consoles exploding as stray rounds tore through them. Grayson moved fast, cutting through guards with brutal efficiency. He ducked a swing from a Tyrax warrior, driving his knife into the alien's gut before spinning to fire at another. Zelvek roared, charging forward. His massive form barreled toward Grayson like a battering ram. Grayson barely dodged, rolling aside as the warlord's claws scraped metal. He came up fast, drawing his sidearm, but Zelvek knocked it from his grip. The Tyrax leader lashed out. Grayson caught the strike but felt his armor crack under the force. He gritted his teeth, pain shooting through his ribs. Voss fired, hitting Zelvek in the shoulder. The warlord snarled, staggering. Grayson didn't hesitate. He grabbed a fallen blade, a Tyrax weapon, jagged and cruel, and drove it into Zelvek's chest. The warlord's eyes widened. Grayson twisted the blade. This is for every species you've slaughtered. Zelvek slumped, lifeless. The bridge fell silent. Voss wiped blood from her face. Commands down. What now? Grayson stepped over the warlord's corpse, activating the ship's comm system. This is Captain Elias Grayson of the Terran Defense Fleet. The Tyrax dreadnought is ours. The tide of war had just turned. The command bridge of the Tyrax dreadnought was eerily silent. The only sound was the hum of failing consoles and the labored breathing of human soldiers catching their breath after the brutal fight. The body of High Warlord Zelvek lay motionless on the metal floor, his golden armor cracked, his cold eyes staring into nothing. Captain Elias Grayson wiped the blood from his brow and holstered his sidearm. Hail status? He called over comms. Engineering secure. Hale responded. Weapons offline. I've got teams locking down propulsion. This ship isn't going anywhere unless we say so. Grayson turned to Commander Voss, who was already at the main control station. Can we use this ship against the rest of their fleet? Vasa's fingers flew over the alien interface. Maybe. Their security protocols are still intact, but if we override the command codes, we could turn their own weapons on them. Grayson looked down at Zelvek's body. Then let's get to work. Zorani Prime, surface. Supreme Speaker Vezek stood in the underground bunker, listening as reports came in from the battlefield. The Tyrax forces were in chaos. Without orders from their flagship, their offensive had collapsed. Human soldiers were pressing the advantage, pushing them back across the city. A breath he hadn't realized he was holding escaped him. They did it, he murmured. One of his advisors, a young Zorani with trembling antennae, spoke hesitantly. Do we retreat now, Speaker? Vezek's wings fluttered. No. We stand. If the humans risk their lives for us, we must fight beside them. For the first time in generations, his people would not cower. Tyrax Dreadnought Bridge. Grayson studied the readout on the cracked control panel. The Tyrax fleet was repositioning, confused and leaderless. Some ships were pulling back, others hesitating. They were vulnerable. If we take out their main battleships, we can cripple their entire invasion force, Voss said. They'll have no choice but to retreat. Grayson nodded. Hale, can we get weapons online? A pause. Then, I can route auxiliary power to the cannons. We'll have one good salvo before the ship's systems fail completely. That's all we need. Grayson turned to Voss. Target their flagships. Make it count. Voss grinned. Firing solutions locked in. Ready to launch on your command. Grayson exhaled. Do it. Zorani Prime Orbit. The dreadnought's massive cannons roared to life. Beams of searing plasma lanced through space, carving through the hulls of the Tyrax command ships. One detonated instantly, its explosion sending debris spiraling. The others, caught off guard, suffered catastrophic damage as their shields collapsed under the onslaught. The remaining Tyrax forces panicked. Without their command structure, their cohesion shattered. Some attempted to flee, while others turned on each other in confusion. The war was no longer in their favor. Tyrax Dreadnought Engineering. Alarms blared. Hale's voice cut through the chaos. Captain, the ship's reactor is unstable. Too much damage from the fight. We have minutes before it goes critical. Grayson's stomach tightened. Can you stop it? Negative. We need to evacuate. Now. Grayson switched channels. All teams, fall back to extraction points. The ship is going down. He turned to Voss. Time to leave. They sprinted through the corridors, dodging sparks and bursts of venting steam as the dreadnought's systems collapsed. Tyrax soldiers who hadn't already surrendered were either dead or fleeing in terror. The human strike teams regrouped at the boarding point. Dropships roared to life as soldiers scrambled aboard. Grayson was the last to step onto the deck before the hatch slammed shut. Punch it! He ordered. The pilot didn't hesitate. The dropship disengaged, banking hard as it sped away from the doomed vessel. Behind them, the dreadnought erupted in a blinding explosion, its shattered remains burning as they tumbled into the planet's atmosphere. Zorani Prime, victory. The skies were clear. The Tyrax fleet had either been destroyed or forced to retreat. The battle for Zorani Prime was over. Grayson stepped onto solid ground as cheers erupted from both human and Zorani soldiers alike. He scanned the crowd, searching for a familiar face. Vezek approached, his wings trembling with emotion. Your people saved us, he said. You had no reason to, yet you stood with us. Grayson met his gaze. That's what we do. Vezek's mandibles twitched. Perhaps it is time for the Zorani to learn from humanity. He extended a hand, an unfamiliar gesture for his species but one he had seen humans use often. Grayson clasped it firmly. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, the Zorani had hope. And humanity had proven, once again, why they were unlike any other species in the galaxy.